More than 2,400 years ago, an ancient superpower blindsided itself by two colossal blunders. This is the story of ancient Athens, the once mighty Greek city-state, brought low by a series of very poor choices. Today we'll delve into a crucial episode from the Peloponnesian War in which Athens made some mistakes that shattered their dominance and forever altered the course of history. Hi, my name is Sebastian, you're watching Mistakes That Changed the World. From the beginning of the war, when Sparta completely misjudged Athens' response to the invasion, to the pathetic end of Athenian power, the Peloponnesian War was a saga of errors and miscalculations. The war was fought for the hegemony of the Greek world and lasted 27 years, and ended only when Athens found a way to lose it. Among the many mistakes that were made, two stand out by far as the ones that changed everything and in a single year led Athens away from imminent victory and into total defeat. Up to the Battle of Mantinea in 418 BC, Athens was heading for victory in the long war with Sparta, which by the way was financed by Persia. But after the Spartan victory at Mantinea, several cities were forced by Sparta to leave the Delian League. The Delian League was an alliance of city-states dominated by Athens, and this Spartan interference in the league cut off the military and financial resources available to Athens. But by 415 BC, the city's leadership had devised a plan that it hoped would restore Athens to its lost position. Desperate to end the war, Athens set its sights on a tempting but dangerous prize, Syracuse. Conquering this city would replenish their treasury and potentially bring other Greek cities under Athenian control. This decision, however, was fraught with peril. Syracuse was not located in Greece but in Sicily. This island in southern Italy was home to several cities that originated from Greek colonies. Just as large and almost as prosperous as Athens, the distant city was indeed a worthy prize. Syracuse had occasionally supported Sparta in the war and was a source of supplies and ships for a military power that was otherwise based primarily on land forces. The Athenians decided that taking the city would give them back the initial advantage, while looting their treasury would refill their own empty coffers. But Syracuse was far from home, thus an invasion required a massive and risky expedition. Some Athenians argued that attacking a fellow democracy like Syracuse was morally wrong, and that focusing on a distant enemy would only strengthen Sparta. But another potential hope of the Athenians was that most of the Sicilian cities that had maintained a cautious neutral position could have joined the Delian League if the largest city on the island was conquered by Athens. This would have seriously increased the resources with which Athens would have had to finance future battles. On the other hand, while the invasion was ongoing, Athens would push these same cities into the Spartan camp until the fall of Syracuse. So in order for this plan to work, it needed a quick victory, so Athens had to defeat a powerful city far from its own bases. The skeptics still believed that they had no reason to extend the war to an area so far from Greece, fighting against a powerful city that did indeed add to Sparta's power, but not vitally. They insisted that they had a lot to lose and not enough to gain from attacking Syracuse, and as history shows, they were painfully right. So why did the expedition to Syracuse take place after all? Well, part of the reason must have been the Athenians' desperation to find a strategy to end this bloody war that had already been going on for 16 years and seemed endless. But another reason was an all too familiar human characteristic: ego. Alcibiades, a charismatic politician that was extremely preoccupied with himself, had managed to gain major influence in the Athenian Senate and saw the expedition as his ticket to glory. He convinced enough Athenian citizens to launch the attack despite the potential dangers. The invasion of Syracuse became a certainty. A fleet carrying nearly 9,000 veteran soldiers landed in Sicily in 415 BC. They contacted several small towns near Syracuse asking for their permission to set up their bases there, but were refused by all. Even so, Syracuse was unprepared, and when the Athenian fleet managed to enter the city's port, the population panicked. But for some reason, Alcibiades didn't immediately attack the city. Instead, the Athenians sailed on and managed to capture Catania, a small town half a day's row from Syracuse. Who knows, perhaps Alcibiades simply thought that he was not yet glorious enough. In the meantime, politics intervened in the equation, and Alcibiades was recalled to Athens to defend himself in a trial on charges of sacrilege. The trial never took place because, surprise surprise, Alcibiades switched sides and fled to the Spartans. Now the leadership of the Athenian army fell in the hands of an extremely cautious commander, Nicias, who had opposed the entire Syracusan adventure. He also didn't immediately attack Syracuse. Instead, he sent part of his fleet and troops on raiding threats along the northern coast of Sicily. The attacked cities, however, weren't intimidated, and none of them joined the Athenians. After returning to camp, the Athenian forces managed to trick the Syracusan army into moving near the base in Catania. They were defeated, but the Athenians could not pursue the retreating soldiers due to a lack of cavalry. The Athenians were in a preposterous position of not being able to win even when they had won. The invasion wasn't going well. Soon winter came, and the Athenian invaders were no closer to conquering a rapidly arming Syracuse. All the while, the other cities of Sicily were still avoiding to get involved. The following year, Nicias tried to surround Syracuse with a wall that was supposed to cut off the city's supply of food and wood. The long siege, coupled with the reputation of the Athenians, dealt a major blow to the morale of the Syracusans. However, nothing came of this because pretty soon a Spartan general named Gylippus arrived in the city, and under his leadership, the Syracusans regained their will to fight back. The Athenians expected the city to fall due to their enemies' shaken confidence, but that never happened. In fact, it was the other way around. Within months, the Athenians' efforts to build the wall ceased, and forts were erected to secure the city's supplies. By 413 BC, the Syracusans had also managed to hire 7,000 mercenaries. And to top it all off, Nicias also discovered that the Sicilian city was in the midst of a campaign to form and equip a substantial fleet. With the siege of Syracuse stalling, Athens made another critical error. Instead of accepting defeat and withdrawing, they doubled down, sending reinforcements, an act of desperation that further strained their resources. And it was all to no avail. Syracuse still refused to capitulate. Finally, when retreat seemed inevitable and there was no hope of success, Nicias announced that the entire expedition would return home. It was a failure, yes, but it was also a good decision. Staying could have led to the collapse of the entire army. But then, something happened. Before the Athenians could return to their ships, a solar eclipse occurred. A devout believer in omens, like many other Greeks, Nicias was convinced to delay their departure. This solar eclipse couldn't have been a coincidence, right? It was a sign to stop retreating. After all, you'll want to attract the wrath of the gods when you need to cross some mighty and stormy seas. An oracle recommended the Athenians to delay their departure 3 times 9 days. And listening to the gods is a wise decision, you would think. It wasn't. In fact, this 27-day pause proved fatal. The Syracusans, of course, didn't just quietly wait for the invaders to go home. No, they seized the opportunity to once and for all take care of this threat. They attacked what was arguably the best navy in the world back then and destroyed a good chunk of the Athenian fleet. Then, to block the remaining ships, they chained together their own vessels and surrounded the Athenians. With the ships blockaded, the army had nowhere to go. With dwindling supplies and morale plummeting, Nicias ordered his men to retreat to Catania, which the Athenians still controlled. He divided the army into 2 columns, each consisting of about 20,000 men, and then marched towards the small town. But the Sicilian troops blocked every road, bridge, and pass, slowing the retreat considerably. Each column was pressed from behind by the Syracusan army and harassed from all sides. With only 6,000 men left breathing, General Demosthenes surrendered his column. Nicias had fewer than 1,000 soldiers when he capitulated as well. The Athenian invasion was over, and it ended in a complete disaster. After 4 years of fierce siege, the Syracusan leaders had no generosity left. Of the 7,000 survivors, only a few hundred ever saw Athens again. Most were put to hard labor in the stone quarries of Syracuse, where they met their end. Athens paid a huge price for the invasion of Sicily, which it never recovered from. It was a completely unnecessary mistake, made for all the wrong reasons, against the wrong enemy, and carried out in the wrong way. The Peloponnesian War continued, but Athens never truly recovered. The loss of over 12,000 hoplites and twice as many rowers and foot soldiers ended all hopes to realize the dream of a unified Greece under Athenian leadership. But Sparta was also unable to fill those shoes. They too lost too many men and couldn't replace the strong central leadership that Athens had provided before the war. They did eventually win with the help of Persia, but it just wasn't the same. And that in turn led to a Greek world divided by envy and constant bickering between the city-states. The consequences of the Athenian mistakes extended far beyond the Peloponnesian War. A weakened Greece became vulnerable to foreign powers, paving the way for Macedonian and eventually Roman domination. Had Athens remained strong, the Macedonian domination under Philip and consequently that of Alexander the Great would have not followed. Persia, playing a key role in Greek politics, could very well have remained an intact Oriental empire for many more centuries. Instead of becoming the dominant culture from Egypt to Babylon, Greek civilization and democracy could well have been a footnote, not a force in history. The defeat and collapse of their city caused the ideals of democracy and Greek values to be spread later throughout Europe and Asia. A small consolation for the citizens of Athens, who paid a huge price for both the mistakes of Alcibiades and Nicias. So what do you think? Were these truly avoidable mistakes, or was Athens destined for a fall? How do the choices made millennia ago still influence our world today? Discuss it in the comments downstairs. If you enjoyed this exploration of ancient blunders and their lasting impact, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of empires, battles, and decisions that shaped the world we know. Do remember that there's a Patreon page if you feel like helping out this channel. I'd like to thank my long-standing Patreons, Dan and Lawrence Neal, for their continued support. In the meantime, as always, I do hope to see you next time. Bye.